This is my newest lens. It's a mirrored lens, a 500 millimeter, believe it or not, mirrored lens. You can see the mirror in there. If you haven't seen these are pretty neat. You get these really long focal lengths. This one's 500. I've seen them 800, 1000, and 1200 millimeter lenses. This one was 50 bucks. Normally new, they're anywhere from 100 to 150. This one's by Vivitar. I think this is an older model. There's also Canon, Samyang, and Alteca, I think, makes one as well. But they're really neat to play around with. You can hit birds from way far away. The aperture is fixed in here, so not only is it a fixed 500 millimeters, this is fixed at f8 is the aperture on this one. I've seen them at f6.3. The other thing about them is I believe all of them are manual focus. So I'll take this off. You see there's no electronics on the back here for chips, so you'll have to do a manual focus. So it makes it quite difficult to get that focus just right when you're 500 millimeters away. So I've had this for a few days. I'll kind of explain how I shot stuff, and I'll show you some sample images. Obviously you need a tripod at 500 millimeters. It's going to be all shaky and it's going to be hard to get that shot just right. A tripod or a monopod. There's a little tip: if you don't have a monopod, I don't have a monopod, you can just take the legs up and you'll have a monopod like that on your tripod. So I went around and shot kind of monopod style last couple of days, and you really have to have that shutter speed way up there. So even if you've got on something stable like that, because at any movement, even at 500 millimeters, I mean, it's just any movement will just make it out of focus. So I put my shutter speed, I recommend even on the monopod at least 1500. You could use a cable release on a tripod and go lower, of course, but if you're running around trying to get some shots of birds, to have that shutter speed way up there. So what I do is the aperture is, like I said before, it's fixed at f8. So if it's already fixed, I switch it, and I know my shutter speed has to be way up there. I'll switch my camera here to TV mode on the Canon. That's shutter priority. So I'll put it on that, and then I crank the shutter up to 2000 and put my ISO on auto. So since your aperture is set at f8, your shutter speed is now set at 2000. Your ISO will adjust according to the shot. And you really got to be careful about this, especially you want it to be very sunny outside, because at that high shutter speed, your ISO is going to go way up. So just be aware of what your camera, how bad it is at high ISOs. The other thing that I didn't mention is these lenses are all manual focus only. So you see there's no sensors on the back. So it's really hard to nail down that focus. So there's a couple of methods that I use to try to get it perfect. First thing you want to do is, I took a couple shots that came out blurry. I was like, what? Just make sure there in the viewfinder that your little focus for the viewfinder is dead in the middle, so you'll be actually focusing through the viewfinder right. That's one thing that you need to check. Also, it's really hard to get focus just pinpoint when you're going with manual focus like that. The way I try to do it is I use the LCD, flip it over to live view, and then I'll use the little button there that is the magnifying glass, and that zooms in just so you can fine tune that focus just right before I take the shot. It's not super quick, but if you want something to be super and sharp for this lens, that's the way you'll have to do it. So here's a few examples of stuff I was running around in the yard and shot over the last couple of days. As you can see that, like I said earlier, this lens isn't exactly sharp. You want to have your subject straight in the middle of your frame there. You can't really do the rule of thirds here because on the edges it's extremely bad as far as sharpness. So here's the best one I've got over the last couple of days is this chipmunk. I'm about 12 feet away on this, and he actually stood there for a little bit, and I was able to get about 12-15 shots out of this, and this was the one that was the sharpest. So this is, with this particular lens, this is about as sharp as you'll get. Some of the other lenses might be a little bit sharper, but that's what I found from that. I hope you enjoyed this review. I've got other reviews. Just subscribe, check them out. I even got a review did a couple years ago on this Proline tripod. Check it out. This thing was I think $50, and I've had it in creeks and everything. It's a really nice tripod for the money, and it's lasted a couple years. Really nice.